Ladies and gentlemen, this is an interesting article, and it's complete and utter nonsense. It is pure fantasy of people who obsess over President Trump. Their worst nightmare is coming. November 3rd is just around the corner. President Trump will be reelected. Go below in the pinned comment and description of this section, of this segment, and check out my latest H.A. Goodman's Other Channel segment. So subscribe to that channel as well. I will be doing, I think, a repeat, a Bizarro World return, just because everything's been so absurd lately. Rough polling stretch has GOP operatives asking, could Trump drop out? This is absurd, complete nonsense. The definition of, it's the Democratic Party's dream, but it's not happening. And it's not news. It's not even gossip. It's a fantasy that Democrats wish could happen or would happen. Rough polling stretch has GOP operatives asking, could Trump drop out? Some GOP operatives are wondering if the president could drop out of the presidential race if his poll numbers don't improve. Why would he do that? First of all, it's not going to be Biden, it's going to be Hillary Clinton. Clinton's going to be nominee, or they lose. And then you have the Durham probe and William Barr, John Durham. Do you think these people are going to roll the dice with a man who communicates and looks like an exhumed body? Tell me, okay, it's like Weekend at Bernie's, but Weekend at Biden's. They are propping up this cadaver that looks like, he looks like an exhumed body that got plastic surgery. And, like, he communicates it's almost like he's either taken, 10 tequila shots or, banged his head into the wall. That's how he communicates. You're talking about, and I think it's an act. I don't think it's actually him. I think he's fine, actually. I think most of it is an act. But he would get obliterated if it's Trump versus Biden in a debate. So Democrats who have convinced themselves because poll numbers are up. The same poll said that Clinton could win Texas. They say that the poll numbers were accurate only because the popular vote went to Clinton. The popular vote went to Clinton because of Gary Johnson and the Libertarian Party. That won't be a factor this year. And that's 4.5 million votes taken away. And because Clinton outspent Trump 2-1. You're not going to have that. The pandemic, nobody blames on Trump. Over half of all the lives lost are in 4 to 5 Democratic Party states. New York, New Jersey, Michigan, Illinois, and Pennsylvania. Over half. This is, if you want to make this into a red or blue state issue, it's a blue state issue. If over half of all the lives lost were in Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Kansas, and Nebraska, you better believe every day they would be liberal publications would be gleefully talking about how, oh my God, the Republicans are so backwards. They're already doing that. And they still don't own the pandemic is not President Trump's fault. These governors in primarily Democratic-run states dropped the ball. Then you have the protests. Well, where was George Floyd murdered? In Minneapolis, a blue Democratic city in a Democratic state. 2 Democratic senators and Amy Klobuchar didn't prosecute or indict the cop who did this. Now, God bless law enforcement. Most police officers are great people, are courageous people. God bless them. Okay? But there are always bad apples. There are bad apples in every industry, every segment of the population. And so the law enforcement official that did that to George Floyd, Amy Klobuchar knew he had a history and of excessive force and didn't do anything. And then you have Val Demings in Florida. She was the police chief of a department that has a history of excessive force. So, I mean, and then you have Kamala Harris, who withheld exculpatory evidence from people who were basically going to be sent to the electric chair. Okay, so we can go on forever with Democrats, but why would he drop out when he's going to win? President Trump's he's on track to win. He's on pace to win easily. It's going to be Hillary Clinton. If it was Biden, he would obliterate Biden in a landslide. The people who say that the polls show this or that, the polls showed, like I said, she outspent Trump 2-1. That's not going to happen this year. Okay? Gary Johnson's not going to happen this year either. Also, we had record low unemployment. People remember that. So he's not dropping out. Democrats and GOP operatives who are basically Democrats. I'm not a Democrat or Republican. I was a Democrat my whole life. I was the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post in 2016. This is before Rose Twitter. I don't know where Rose Twitter was, but this was before Rose Twitter and the anarchist Twitter and everything. And Trump is going to take down social media, Twitter and Facebook in particular, with Democrats. The Democratic Party is dissolving. They're trying to erase U.S. history. They're trying to legislate semantics and words and language. And this is their last attempt at truly altering America's political landscape. It ain't gonna, once president, give it your best shot, Democrats. Do your best. Because this is the last moment that media will be in its current form. Time is running out on this unsustainable, absurd, maniacal time in U.S. history, where you have the most fanatical, apoplectic, hysterical, arrogant, ignorant, absurd political paradigm run by people who can't even form an argument without it making the most absurd leaps of logic. So it's not that they oppose President Trump. He retweeted something. He retweeted an older man saying a phrase purely in sarcasm. He didn't mean that phrase. It was purely in sarcasm because, of course, the left-leaning, a bunch of old people were arguing, just like a bunch of young people arguing on Twitter, and then the left-leaning older person says, racist, the first thing he says. It's almost like they're programmed. Like Democrats are programmed from birth till they're 95 to just yell out, racist, bigot. That's like the first go-to. Don't know the person, first go to. So the response was obviously sarcastic. But let's assume that it wasn't. Which swing states have the most bigots and horrible racist people? Because we have to find that out now. Once Trump wins, Democrats are going to be every single complaint. Oh, it was the Russians and the Putin and their subliminals to all the bigoted people, and that swung the election. And oh my God, a voter suppression. So which states are going to have the most voter suppression right now? Because you didn't talk about voter suppression, Democrats. You talked about Russia and the Ukraine and the pandemic. Then you're focusing on civil rights, but you didn't do so. You didn't do so when Eric Garner was murdered in New York City. Oh, that's right, a Democratic stronghold. Why is it that these horrific tragedies are taking place in cities? Not all the time. They take place in Kentucky and red states also. But why is it that we heard Eric Garner first in 2014? Democrats did nothing. And then they're pretending that they care for political expediency. It's political utility. But they're playing themselves. They're not deceiving people. They're playing themselves. Every statue that's torn, every building that's set ablaze, There's $1.4 billion, according to one insurance estimate, in property damage around the country. That's a great number of votes for President Trump in swing states. Every statute torn down, I'm not even getting into the morality of it. You can disagree or agree, or you can say it's righteous. I might even side with protesters on certain statutes, but everything torn down is more votes for Trump. Democrats aren't very good at politics. Without overwhelming media help, they wouldn't win an election. Without social media help, they basically have no message. Okay, there's a reason AOC was looking into, looking into some location, but we don't know which location it was. Why didn't we actually see what she was looking into that was making, the waterworks flying? Oh, well, that's right. Because if we actually looked at what she was seeing, it wouldn't have been the analogy or the metaphor she used. And I wrote about that in the Jerusalem Post below. Read my articles in the Jerusalem Post. The people who use the phrase, the people who utilize. Democrats, left-leaning people are insidious. And they take, and as a Jewish American, okay, I can tell you, and if you're African American or Latino or Asian American or Hispanic American watching this, they do this to your culture. They've done this to my culture. Democrats take a moment in time, a horrific moment where man's inhumanity to man, or I'm sorry, human beings' inhumanity to human beings, is the most barbaric, horrific, just atrocious, the atrocities in human history. They take that, and then they say, well, that's what Trump is about, and they utilize a word I can't say on YouTube, but they say, well, Trump is, the reincarnation of Germany in World War II, and they're the ones who want to boycott the only Jewish state. And President Trump signed an executive order combating anti-Semitism on college campuses, which was running rampant. And the left has only vitriol and venom towards the only Jewish state on the planet. And President Trump signed the First Step Act. And President Trump signed legislation to fund historically black colleges and universities. $225 million, I believe. But he retweeted an old man saying something sarcastic. So, my God. President Obama actually obliterated a country in Africa, Libya, with a failed NATO intervention. You think Democrats care? They don't care at all. They don't care at all. And it's interesting. They don't care, but they do care about one report that was from an unknown source that said that Trump called a country you-know-what. Everything is about image for Democrats, and they utilize pain and hurt and suffering. So a man is George Floyd in a Democratic-run city, in a Democratic-run state, is murdered, and it's Trump's fault. His reaction to the protest. Democrats never own anything. They think they're very good at public relations, but they're really not. They're not deceiving anybody. And they can go ahead and say, oh, he used a triangle and this is that, and oh my God, he retweeted this. Well, he deleted the tweet. And so which states have the most bigots? We need to know this because Democrats are going to complain about losing. They might lose Minnesota. If they lose Minnesota and win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, then they lose the election still if everything remains the same in 2016. Go to 270 to win. Okay, the polls are worthless, garbage, complete nonsense. They're deceiving themselves again. They're going to lose again. And the November 3rd meltdown will be amazing. November 4th, the hangover. It's the meltdown on November 3rd and the hangover on November 4th. And the reality on November 5th that they're done politically forever. And then on November 6th, people think, well, should I be on Twitter and Facebook anymore? Because we've retweeted Trump into 8 years. President Trump is not dropping out. So we can read this one. Breaking. GOP operatives are for the first time raising the possibility that President Trump could drop out of the race. Yeah, with 90% approval in the Republican Party. Over the weekend, I spoke to a sample of major players. One described Trump's current psyche as fragile. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think he's fragile. He was set up and framed by corrupt intelligence chiefs, and he's fine. And now we have the Durham probe and William Barr. And he was impeached on complete nonsense. That was, by the way, right during the pandemic, like the start of the pandemic. All they focused on was impeachment. So you can share this segment with anyone who thinks that he's going to drop out, because it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. Sorry, Democrats. You better hope. Look, let's put it this way. My prediction has always been Hillary Clinton's going to be nominee. I will have made the biggest political prediction of all time. If they don't go, okay, Hillary Clinton could become president. She could become the first female president. Not a fan. Not a fan. I wrote 100 articles in the Huffington Post, Salon, The Hill during 2016. A great many went viral. Not a fan of Madam Secretary. I'm letting you know that she could become the first female president. She could become president. First female president if President Trump continues to fall into traps. So yesterday was a trap, and he fell into it. You cannot retweet. You have to look at exactly what's said. Maybe he couldn't hear the retweet because obviously he wouldn't have retweeted that. You don't go, see, when people say, he knew what he was doing. Well, did he know what he was doing when he signed prison reform? When he signed legislation to fund historically black colleges and universities? Did he know what he's doing when he signed the executive order to combat anti-Semitism? Don't call him the reincarnation of I can't say the word, but of Germany. Don't you dare call him that in World War II when he's the only president. And Bernie Sanders voted for it. Sorry, socialists and anarchists who have utter contempt for the only Jewish state in the world. Okay. A country I had my bar mitzvah in. So he's the only president to move the embassy into Jerusalem, and you have the audacity to call him that word. And then people retweet the wonderful, amazing, brilliant people at the Lincoln Project. Do you know who these people are? They're all neoconservatives from the Bush era. This has proved everything I've ever said. Everything I have ever said, I've written, has been now proven without a shadow of a doubt. Because I stated Democrats are basically the same as the Bush administration, and they're fawning over the same Bill Kristol, the same people, Max Boot. What did I not call this in nobody even remembers. Who cares about what I call? And I'm not perfect. I've made wrong calls before, but most of my calls have been accurate. But again, it's not about me. Clinton is going to be nominee. This is all a charade. When the curtain is pulled back and we see, why aren't I 50 points ahead, you might ask? And then finally you can get NFC champs, AFC champs, and we go. Okay? But Trump is the 85 Bears. And Democrats aren't even the 85 Patriots. They're like the 94 Chargers. Or I don't even know. Maybe the 85 Patriots. Who knows? Okay. They're Jerry Nadler's softball team. Okay. So you do the math on that. Give me your thoughts below. Trump isn't dropping out. Why would he drop out when he's going to win? The polls are completely inaccurate. The only reason they were accurate in terms of the popular vote is because of one-sided media attention, or one side, like the media was unanimously against unanimously against President Trump. The coverage was completely one-sided, and Clinton outspent Trump 2-1, 1.2 billion to 600 million. What do you think if the media was just somewhat unbiased and Trump outspent Clinton, or they were even? What do you think would have happened without Gary Johnson? Or what if it was just even with the same media, even money, and Clinton didn't outspend Trump 2-1? So these people are completely delusional, and they're just trying to prop up their miserably failed political party and ideology. So, I mean, look, keep on doing what you're doing, Democrats. Keep the fanatical, apoplectic, hysterical media coverage and maniacal, obsessive social media, just hysteria. Keep it up. It's not going to work for the average American of all different backgrounds and ethnicities are going to vote for President Trump. And by the way, he's doing better among Hispanic Americans and Latinos than he did in 2016. Biden's doing worse than Clinton, and they expect to win. First of all, it ain't going to be Biden. That's one reason why Clinton will be nominee. If Clinton isn't the nominee, they're the most inept political party of all time, and Clinton would be the most inept politician. But that's not going to happen. It's going to be Hillary Clinton. Give me your thoughts below. Don't worry about the hype. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. It is going into, I don't think Public Enemy likes President Trump, but don't believe the hype. Do not believe the hype. I want Americans home from never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts and wars, and President Trump, his administration signed a deal in Afghanistan to bring home Americans. We've ended that conflict, essentially. We're going to bring home Americans. But none of that happens. Durham probe, none of this happens if Democrats win. They're not going to win, but this is why people vote for President Trump. Give me your thoughts below. Subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel. I'm probably going to have a Bizarro World Goodman very soon on Trump's retweet. Give me your thoughts below. Thank you very much. Check out my live streams this evening. I have a live stream in the early evening Pacific time and late evening every night. Thanks, everybody.